These are the top 20 Nigerian pastors who has been arrested and alleged to have committed series of heinous crimes. Some of them has been convicted and sentenced to prison, while others has been released or still awaiting trial. At number 1, Bishop Feyi Daniels, the founder of the Irene Christian Ministries, who was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment for tricking his female church members to his home and forcefully giving them lashes of his manhood in order to satisfy himself. And upon his trial, he was finally sentenced to life imprisonment by the court. At number 2, Pastor Sunday Abiodun, a former Babalawo herbalist who became a pastor and started his own church. And when his ministry was going down, he was alleged to have used his pregnant wife for ritual. As accused, he physically suppressed his pregnant wife with his own hands until she passed out before he was finally caught and arrested. At number 3, Reverend Chukwuemeka Eziugo, also known as Reverend King, the General Overseer of the Christian Praying Assembly, who was alleged to have poured petrol fuel and set several members of his church on fire, all in the name of deliverance and prayer session. Some of his congregants lost their lives in the process, while others who survived this fire cleansing were left to suffer severe injuries. The Lagos State High Court sentenced him to be hanged, but Chukwuemeka Eziugo proceeded to the Supreme Court to challenge the judgment, and still the Supreme Court stamped the verdict of the Lagos High Court and also sentenced him that his life should be taken by hanging him. His disciples are still loyal, following and upholding his ministry, while Reverend King himself is still patiently awaiting his execution in prison. At number 4, Pastor Michael Olurombi, a 60-year-old prophet of God who established his church in the UK and was alleged to have had forceful affair with numerous female members of his church. It was also added that he left several of his victims pregnant after having a total of 88 rounds of affair with them. He was finally convicted and sentenced to 34 years in prison alongside his wife. At number 5, Pastor Timothy Omotosho, a 65-year-old Nigerian pastor and general overseer of the Jesus Dominion Church, who is based in South Africa. He is presently facing over 60 count charges of forcing himself with teenagers who are members of his church, especially in the choir, and he was arrested during his attempt to escape from South Africa to Nigeria in the airport. At number 6, Pastor Melody Ajija, the founder and general overseer of the Lightway Ministry, who was arrested and remanded for allegedly staging and conducting fake miracles in his church in Warri in Delta State.
Now look at the camera, prophet. Look at it now, look at the camera.
At number 7, Pastor Adetokunbo Adenokpo, a 52-year-old Nigerian pastor who is the founder and general overseer of the New Life Ministry in Shagamu, somewhere in Ogun State. Pastor Adetokunbo suddenly started a side hustle where he abducts random people in exchange for ransom payment. He keeps them in an underground cabin somewhere inside the church building, and upon his arrest, he notified the police that he needed the money to expand his ministry and to do charity works. At number 8, Pastor Godson Akubuiro, a 49-year-old general overseer of the Mountain of Breakthrough Deliverance Ministry, who was printing his own fake naira notes somewhere in Ikorodu, Lagos. And upon his arrest, he claimed that he was only using the money to support the less privileged in his congregation. Number 9, Pastor Timothy Abiola, a Nigerian pastor who brought out a rifle and fired his own fellow pastor, whose name is Pastor Bamiji Ilori, in Ogun State for reasons he is yet to disclose. At number 10, Pastor Felix Okpara, a 39-year-old resident pastor of the Mercy House Church International, who was remanded in prison by a Port Harcourt magistrate court in Rivers State after he was alleged to have constantly used a 16-year-old girl from his church to satisfy his flesh. Felix did not stop at that. He further conditioned the 16-year-old girl to take an oath with him not to tell anyone about their secret affair, and that if she does, her life will be lost. At number 11, Pastor Ugochukwu Emmanuel, the general overseer of the Christ Living Hope Church, who was arrested with a total of 54 sticks of cannabis on his way to a crusade in Kenya. Number 12. Pastor Asowata, a senior pastor of the New Glory Revival Church, who slept with a married choir mistress in his church. His affair was eventually exposed when the married woman fell ill with no medications working for her until she was forced to confess to her husband that she has been sleeping with the pastor.
How many times you don't sleep with her? Face me, face the camera.
No, I said that 2 times.
2 times.
One I remember. Now what I just remember.
Remember. Which?
Number 13. Pastor Michael Bassi, a 45-year-old pastor of the United Evangelical Church, who was arrested with a dried human head tied with a picture and a red cloth, all together in his possession. At number 14, Pastor Joseph Igwemo, a 34-year-old pastor of the Global Influence Ministry, who was arraigned in Edo State for allegedly sleeping with a married church chorister. It was also said that Pastor Igwemo himself wedded the same woman he was sleeping with her husband few years ago. Number 15, Pastor Gbenga Filani, a pastor of the Celestial Church of Christ, who was alleged to have deceived a 19-year-old pregnant lady into his church premises for deliverance. But in the end, Filani was accused to have slept with the 5-month pregnant lady, using his manhood to apply anointing oil inside of her back to back. And upon the victim's narration, he was arrested and prosecuted. At number 16, Pastor Unduka Anyawu, a 28-year-old pastor of the Lord's Chosen Charismatic Church in the Oshodi area of Lagos State, who forcefully had back-to-back affair with 2 sisters who were 13 and 17 years old, respectively. And upon his trial, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. At number 17, Pastor Timothy Ayodele, the general overseer of the Spirit-filled Christian Church, who took advantage of the misunderstanding between a husband and a wife in his church. He invited and kept the wife alongside her 2 daughters in his house for weeks, and on a daily basis, he was alleged to have been sleeping with both the 2 daughters and the wife before he was arrested. 18. Pastor Sunday Egbo, the founder of the Christ Mercy Ministries in Enugu State, who was paraded by the police for inviting one of his female church members and forcefully sleeping with the young woman. He also promised that her life will be taken with a magic stone if she ventures to tell anyone about it. Pastor Sunday was said to have further seized her clothes until the young woman, who is also a church member, shouted for help, and by the time neighbors came around, Pastor Sunday was arrested and he truly confessed to committing the crime. 19. Pastor Ebenezer Ajigbotoluwa, the founder and general overseer of the Church of Lord in Abeokuta. He was arrested for sleeping with 2 sisters of the same parents and also getting them pregnant in the process. He was able to pull the stunt after deceiving the family to bring their daughters to reside in the church premises for the time being. At 20, Pastor Paul Abam. Pastor Paul was accused of going around to bury charms in people's properties and thereafter charge them a sum of 55,000 naira to clear and remove it back as miracles. He was arrested and paraded by the youths of his community in Cross River State.